Howdy folks, over the past several months I've had the opportunity to shoot with 7 different full-frame alpha cameras side by side in the field, and it's only when you're shooting with multiple cameras at once in the same kind of situations that you notice all of the similarities, differences, quirks, and in the case of Sony and their hugely built out system, all of the overlaps and where the kind of transition points are. So I thought this would be a great opportunity whilst it's all fresh in my mind to talk you through what would be the full frame camera to buy if you're looking for one in 2024. So in this video, I'm going to run through each of the different cameras, talk about their pros and cons, what their closest rivals are, who I think the camera is most suited to, and which is my overall pick in 2024. So first of all is the A7 IV. This guy is a real jack of all. It's got a solid 33 megapixel backside illuminated sensor, 10 frames a second shooting 4K 60p video, and it's a fantastic hybrid option. They're currently sitting around $2,500 US, and their closest rival within the system would be the A7C Mark II. They look quite different side by side, but they have a lot in common. The A7C II has the improved AI autofocus from the A7R5 in portable LUT files for video, but it lacks a second card slot and CFA support. The multi-selector and the EVF is much lower spec compared to the A7 IV. It's sitting around $2,200 at the moment. So between these two, I guess it really comes down to how much you value the better EVF, the better autofocus from the AI algorithms, the second card slot, and importantly, the form factor, because it is quite a big difference. Now, a top non-Sony competitor to these and some of the next ones I'm going to talk about would be the Panasonic S5 II. As I film it, B&H Photo have it up for $1,700 US. It's a 6K capable camera, has dual cards, is weather sealed, has great stabilization, and at stills, it's lower though, at 24.2 megapixel. Now, B&H Photo are long-term partners of the channel, and they actually sent me out a lot of the different, well, over the years, they've probably sent me out just about every Sony camera that's been made since the first generation of alphas to test out and bring to you guys. Please check out their links below, and if you purchase any of these cameras using their Payboo payment card, it'll instantly credit you back the amount of state sales tax on the order, potentially saving you hundreds of dollars. Full details below. Next in the lineup, and now we're taking a step into sensitive territory, is the A7S III. S is for sensitivity. This is much more video focused line, and this is another one that, in a way, the Panasonic kind of competes with. This guy was released back in 2020, which makes it the oldest of the current lineup of full-frame cameras. At $3,500, it offers great 4K 120, 422 internal recording, and it's really focused more on video. Its 12 megapixel sensor gives great low light performance, but relatively low res stills for 2024. Having said that, if you're mostly focused on video in 2024, I would probably recommend you go for the FX3. Very different form factor, same sensor, but it's even more video centric. You can see this one is rigged out, this one is in a cage. It actually belongs to my videographer, Aaron. This guy adds loads of video-centric features like active cooling, better audio capabilities, thread mounts, anamorphic support, and Sony have been much more active in software updates for the FX line than they have the A7S III in the past couple of years. This one is, however, even more firmly aimed at video. It doesn't have an EVF, and it's slightly more expensive at $3,900. Next up, let's talk about the latest, hottest, and justifiably most hyped camera at the moment from the Sony range. I think, in many ways, the best that they've released, the A9 Mark III. Best grip, best ergonomics, best screen, best dial layout. This has so much going for it, and the latest generation of sensor with global shutter. That does come with some trade-offs. You can see my full review that I just released recently. It's a phenomenal camera. Nothing holds a candle to it in terms of speed, and The body design has been refined that much more. You can see the difference putting them all side by side, but in the hand you can really feel that as well. As I said, this guy is completely unmatched in the market for speed. 120 frames per second for 24 megapixel RAW files is just insanity. Suffice to say, this guy is for anyone who's looking for ultimate speed and the benefits of a global shutter, so flash sync and no rolling shutter. Check out my full review if this guy meets your needs with its lower megapixel, higher speed, and somewhat compromised ISO and image quality. I think in many ways, this is actually better than the flagship Sony A1, which is actually due for an upgrade. Now, no matter which way you go in the Sony range, you can't go wrong. You just need to choose the one that suits your needs. If you are a Sony user, check out my new setup guide. It takes you through the full frame cameras in the range, showing you all of the physical controls, what they do, how you can interface with them, as well as an initial setup guide of over 50 different things that I suggest you set up immediately straight out of the box. Then it goes through a complete menu deep dive based on the latest menus from the Sony A9 III, going through every single option and explaining to you exactly what they do. It also comes with customization guides for landscape, sports, birds, video, and more. And it comes with camera settings file for each of the cameras featured that you can download to get you set up and away quickly. Check it out. Full details on that guy are below. Getting back to our high-speed cameras, what the Sony A9 leaps ahead in terms of speed, it does give up some ground in terms of dynamic range and color range and resolution. And that's where the A1 remains the current flagship. This guy at 50 megapixel and 30 frames a second when it was released several years ago was unbelievable, and to be honest, it still is. In 2024, what else can do that? 50 megapixel, 30 frames a second, 8K video, 4K 120, an amazing backside illuminated sensor that is yielding beautiful, beautiful results. Probably the second best sensor in terms of image quality output in the entire lineup. Having said all that, there are three things that would hold me back from recommending this guy in 2024 to pretty much anyone who has the budget. One, the price. It's $6,500, so that's just not going to work for a lot of people when there's great cameras in the range for $2,500. Secondly, the age. It's several years old now. The A9 III has been updated and improved in so many ways, and it's cheaper. They're going to have to update this guy. Don't know that we'll see a global shutter, but maybe even faster frames a second, and hopefully the same body design carrying across from the A9 III. And the final thing would be that there is an even better sensor on the market, and that's this guy, which still in 2024 I think would be my pick, the A7R5. R is for resolution, and this guy is just spectacular. 61 megapixel. It's still one of the top performing full frame sensors on the market with the best dynamic range and color range of any of the Sony cameras. As a portrait and landscape photographer, this is where it's at. It also offers 10 frames a second, 8 stops of stabilization, and the latest AI autofocus system. It's really, really a great option, but still, it may be overkill for some people. And this is where things get interesting actually, because whilst we have the A7C II, which is a somewhat pared back but some ways ahead version of the A7 IV, you also have the A7CR, which has this kind of a body type with no traditional EVF on top, but it has the sensor, basically a lot of the guts of the A7R5. So if all you want is that brilliant sensor and the incredible output you get from it, the A7CR could be a great option for you. It's $900 cheaper, you get that juicy 61 megapixel sensor, and it's really a great deal. But when you start going down through the list of specifications and see what you're giving up, the second card slot, the incredible EVF, the amazing rear screen that the A7R5 has, a lot of people end up migrating back up and spending that extra $900 to get the traditional body shape and all of the features that the R5 has. But maybe I'm wrong. If you're an A7CR user or an R5 user, let me know as a comment why you chose it over the alternative. Now, I did miss the ZVE1, which shares the 12 megapixel sensor of the FX3 and the A7S3. But to be honest, it's a vlogger and content creator camera. I don't know that those people are watching YouTube anymore, and I don't have a TikTok account, so I hope you'll excuse me for that one. But that is still covered in my Sony setup guide. So to break it down, for general all-around hybrid use, the 7.4 or the C2. For video work, I would go with the FX3 in 2024, but both of them likely are going to be updated before too long. For high speed, if you really have a need for speed Maverick, then the 9.3 is where it's at. But I would personally go for the A1, even in 2024, if your budget extends that far. But if you just want the best image quality, 10 frames a second will do. The R5 is really hard to beat. Still in 2024, that sensor shines in all testing. It's incredible, and the autofocus is basically at the top of the market. Let me know what you're shooting with. Let me know your thoughts on the entire range. Sony have built out an incredible system of cameras, and they've segmented the overlap in them fairly intelligently, that you keep kind of wanting to upgrade from model to model as you start looking at the specification differences. Check out my Sony setup guide. Thanks to B&H Photo and their Payboo card for sponsoring this video. Cheers guys, I'll see you soon.